as a business coach, I still invest in coaching for myself. Business coaching works. Coaching can really help because as we see in our therapy clients, when you're so close to it, it's just hard to see it. We probably all had the experience of counseling 3 clients in a row on the thing that we're dealing with in our lives. And we're great at giving them helping them through it. And when it comes to us, it's like, I don't know, what do I do?
This episode is sponsored by TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. Be sure and check them out and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Hello, everyone. I'm Gordon Brewer, and this is episode number 338 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Glad you've joined us, and if this is your first time listening in, welcome. And if you're coming back for more, glad you're back, and hope you'll take time to follow us or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. So in this episode is another big treat for me, or at least it was a big treat for me when we did the interview. And this is no stranger to this podcast. My good friend Jane Carter joined me again, and we just simply talk about what it's like to be connected in this whole space around private practice and therapy, and also talk a lot about the things that we've learned over the years that we've both been in private practice. We both have had practices in one form or another for nearly 25 years, and there's just a lot we have both learned along the way. But more importantly, I think just listen into this message of being connected. One of the things that I will absolutely attribute my success to, not only in private practice, but with this podcast. And I don't say that in a boasting way, but the main reason that I've been able to make it and keep it going are through the connections that I've made over the years. One of the things that I know, and this is one of the things I've learned, and I know Jane and I talk about this, is don't try to go too much of it alone. It is so important to have key people around you and friends and colleagues and people close to you that you can share ideas with, that you can confide in, and all of those sorts of things. So take note of that, and you'll get to hear more of this as I talk with Jane in this particular episode. But real quickly, before we get to that, speaking of podcasting, have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? There are a lot of therapists that are doing that, and I think it is a great way to, number one, make connections and reach people. And it's just such a personal way to connect to people. Even though it's just somebody on the other end listening to a recording, there's something about podcasting that just makes it feel personal. And so if you're interested in starting a podcast, I've put together a PDF, and this is a pretty comprehensive PDF just about podcasting, along with a ton of resources and people that you can connect to around this topic, and put this together through the Psychcraft network. And so if you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com/Psychcraft PDF, you can get that free download just by signing up. And the reason I put this together is as many as I've shared with many of you, and if you've been listening to the podcast now for a while, you've heard from people within the Psychcraft network. And I started the Psychcraft network a couple of years ago, really to bring together some of the best podcasters and therapists and people within our mental health space of a way of supporting each other in this journey of podcasting, but also helping us just kind of cross promote things and share ideas and resources. So anyway, the PDF is there for you to find out more about podcasting. I can't tell you how many times I've had people come up to me at conferences and ask about the Psychcraft Network, and they say, well, I'd love to be part of this, but I don't have a podcast yet. So this is maybe a first step to maybe getting connected with this particular network is by starting your podcast. So go over to practiceoftherapy.com/psychcraftpdf. And that'll get you there, and it's a free download, and it's got a ton of resources and information around podcasting, plus some information about some of my great colleagues within the Psychcraft Network. And also, before we get to my conversation with Jane, I'd love for you to check out Mental Health Wear TN, mentalhealthweartn.com. This is an online store that I've helped collaborate with my good friend Ashley, and she's put together just some wonderful t-shirts and sweatshirts and different kinds of swag around our profession, but not only around our professions, but also just around mental wellness and addiction recovery. And she's got some beautiful designs there. And so I invite you to go over and check it out. And usually with your first order, you can get a discount. Can't remember what we've got going on there now, but if you'll just go over to mentalhealthweartn.com, and there'll be links here in the show notes for you to find that easily. But check it out. It's a great little store, and she's doing some great designs. So be sure and check that out. And also, real quickly, before we get to my conversation with Jane, I want you to hear from one of the other members of the Psychcraft Network, along with some words from our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes.
Hey there. Are you searching for answers and clarity on your mental health journey? Well, I've got the podcast just for you. Welcome to Finding Your Way Through Therapy, a podcast that's like having a heartfelt conversation with a trusted friend and who understands what you're going through. I'm your host, Steve Bisa, a therapist and proud member of the Psychcraft Network. Finding Your Way Through Therapy is a safe space where we openly explore the emotional complexities of mental health. From busting common myths to sharing actionable advice, we'll navigate this journey together through solo episodes as well as special guests. Discover your inner strength, resilience, and hope as we explore topics like self-care, building healthy relationships, cognitive behavioral therapy, and overcoming challenges. You'll come away with a renewed sense of self and the tools to create a life filled with fulfillment and well-being. So join me on Finding Your Way Through Therapy as we become your companion on this deeply personal journey. I am part of the Psychcraft Network and truly enjoy all the episodes. And back to your regular scheduled programming.
Ready to upgrade your practice from a rusty bicycle to a shiny new sports car? Buckle up, because TherapyNotes is here to turbocharge your journey. It's the comprehensive practice management system you've been craving, equipped with everything you need to navigate patient records, schedule seamlessly, host remote sessions, craft detailed notes, and tackle insurance billing with ease. And guess what? It's your trusty sidekick, available whenever and wherever duty calls. Picture having more quality time with your clients, all thanks to this digital assistant that never clocks out. Here's the kicker. It's Gordon approved, so you can trust it's the real deal. Bid farewell to paperwork headaches and embrace a new era of efficiency and top-tier care. Ready to level up your private practice game? Swing by practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and punch in promo code GORDON for 2 months on the house. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. And I am thrilled to have one of my dearest friends, Jane Carter, back on the podcast. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, she is no stranger to you, but Jane, welcome.
Thank you so much, Gordon. I'm so glad to be back. It's so great to see you.
Yes, and Jane and I have been commiserating about how we need to hang out more often. But yeah, and so Jane, tell folks a little more about yourself for those that might not know about you and how you've landed where you are.
Yeah. Oh gosh, where to begin? I'll try to keep it short. I think I'm a rambler.
So,
All right. Well, so I've been a therapist for 23 years, but I left my job 10 years ago to go into private practice and started doing business coaching about a year after that. So I've been a business coach for 9 years. And I love it. I love it so much. I love talking about it. I love meeting other business coaches and private practice coaches. I love coaching people. It is just so much fun. And one of my core values in my work is that I really believe this process should be fun, in addition to all the challenges and the hard parts and all of that. And I also believe that your business is here to grow you. So that's the lens through which I do this coaching work. A little more about me as a person. I'm an outdoors woman. I also love to get dressed up, though. I'm a former debutante who loves to go, I love to travel. I love good food and good drink and good coffee. And I have the sweetest dog in the world and the greatest friends in the world. So I'm a pretty happy person.
Yeah. And I would say that I've met a lot of Jane's friends, and we have a lot of mutual friends, and her dog is really good too. She's pretty special. So yeah. Well, I know, Jane, you and I had just kind of talked a little bit before we started recording, and we were just talking about things that we've kind of learned or just kind of realized, or as I like to say, learn the hard way sometimes, but things that we've learned in the years that we've been in practice and doing this work. And you and I graduated very close to the same time from graduate school, at least. And so what's been on your mind around all of that?
Oh, wow. I jotted down some thoughts, and there's so many, but I'll start with a really obvious one, though I think it's easy, especially when people are thinking about marketing and doing the right things online and all of that. I think people can lose sight of relationships are everything. They really are. Relationships are everything.
Right.
Even as someone who's built somewhat of an online presence, and even as I help people with that side of things, it really comes back to forming good relationships with others in the space. My coaching friend relationships, people that I think in another time and place, or maybe in different industries, people would call the competition. I'm like, oh my gosh, no.
Yeah.
We are all each other's biggest supporters and have made the greatest connections through one another, as well as just like even when I was building my therapy practice, and I was so scared when I left my job. And what was really cool was that it was the relationships I had built 10 years before that, when I was just trying to find a counseling job, any job, right? But I was just networking around town in Asheville. It was those relationships that ended up filling my practice, when I would reach out and they're like, oh, I remember you, and I'd kept up with a lot of them, even casual relationships. So, again, there are all these little tricks and strategies and the latest thing, but ultimately it truly does come down to valuing people and nurturing those relationships.
Yes. Yeah. That's been my experience as well. Every now and then with the few clients I do see, counseling clients that I see now, I know the topic of, especially we get younger folks and they're trying to find a job and they're, stressing out over, all of those kinds of things. And, it really does come down to, I think, the relationships and the people that I think about all the jobs that I've had, and I can only maybe count maybe one or two that I got just by filling out an application, but all the others I got because I knew somebody, or at least knew somebody that knew somebody,
Yeah.
and just made that connection and those introductions.
Yeah. I'm going to jump on that. I have two things around that. One, just recently, a colleague encouraged me to just look at my data. Like, where are my clients coming from? Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm touchy feely. I don't check my numbers very
Mm-hmm.
often. And I kind of did a breakdown, and I was like, oh, so yeah, 50% have found me, through online or email or, Instagram or whatever. But a full 50% of my clients have just come through personal referrals, which
Mm-hmm.
that's huge. I was like, oh, so okay, just being out there and being a friend and
Mm-hmm.
being a connection and being generous in that way is so important. I'll also back way up when I first moved to town and had my, shiny new counseling degree and no outside experience, and all the jobs said, oh, you've got to have 2 years of experience. And, and everyone was like, oh, Asheville, it's so, you can't throw a therapist without hitting a yoga instructor. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
therapists in town,
Oh
you'll
yeah.
never find a
Yeah.
job. And I finally I took a minimum wage job at the Biltmore Estate selling tickets to their Christmas events. And I was so bummed out. And it was actually my grad school advisor who said, just go to the town where you want to live and just start meeting people. And
Mm-hmm.
the first two people I met in that job were the people who ended up making connections that led to my college counseling jobs, which were like
Mm-hmm.
prime jobs. They were wonderful, but
Yes.
I was just being me and talking about counseling and how excited I was to get into that
Mm-hmm.
world. And they said, oh, well, let me introduce you around at the college where I work. And then
Right.
ended up eventually parlaying into dream jobs. So
Yeah.
just talking to everyone, just getting, even
Yeah.
if you're an introvert, just
Yeah.
forming connections is so
Yes.
important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I think that's so true. And I think that's what's gotten me in my practice to where I am today, is because I've been active in my community, and people know me, just know me, and they know what
Yeah.
I do. And then things come up where, oh, I've got so and so's daughter is looking for somebody, or so and so's son, or whatever. And that's how I get a lot of the referrals. And I think the people in my practice too do much of the same. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
really, yeah.
And
So
I'm going to segue from that actually into the next big kind of lesson I've learned over the years,
mhm.
which is because as we're talking, I'm thinking, oh gosh, but what about the introverts or the shy people or the people who are listening and going, but I'm not a people person except in the couch.
Mhm.
And the other thing that has been huge is just learning to truly like be unapologetically you, like lean into your you-ness. And it's still possible to make connections without being this socialite or without being a super extroverted person.
Mhm.
And I'm an extroverted introvert. So I can work a room if I need to, but
All
for the
right. Yeah.
longest time, I mean, I still really hold this standard. Like if I go to a networking event and I talk to one new person, that's success. I'm like, okay, I
Mhm.
talked to one person. That's one
Mhm.
more person that I've asked them questions. I've practiced my social skills. I've, been present with them. But you don't have to turn into a different person. The more you are, and the less kind of trying to please everyone you are,
Mhm.
the more successful you're going to be because they know, okay, this is a unique person and this is who's going to
Mhm.
work well with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your work, maybe some folks would be interested in knowing kind of this story. And you made kind of a transition from being kind of your typical mental health counselor to doing coaching. And what was
Yeah.
behind all of that for you?
Well, because I had really good coaching and it was impacting my life and impacting my business. It was impacting my business. It was actually impacting how I was counseling people, because as you and I both know, there are actually a lot of overlaps, like running a business and learning how to run a business, but in learning how to do the mindset side of it and be confident as a business owner, there's so many parallels to the personal growth that happens in counseling. So I kept hearing myself quoting my coach to my therapy clients, and it was just really exciting to me. And I wanted to do that. I was like, ooh, and I also love to learn. And I was just eager to learn more about this new profession and this new way of thinking about business. And so I just ate it up. So I was like, well, if I get paid to do it, it's just, I'm getting paid to do the thing I love, which is to learn more. And it's just a different, I mean, it's funny. I call business coaching stealth therapy, because it's just a different way to get to heal people. I mean, when you're running a business, all your stuff comes up, all your emotional stuff, fears, your insecurities, sometimes really old, deep stuff. And your business is just one more arena to work through those things and do it differently, right? Take risks if you're someone who's been really fear-based, right? That kind of thing. So yeah, I just found it so intriguing. So I dove in, not in a great, I made a first pancake and had to get through that to like figure out what actual pancakes I should be making with my next iteration of coaching. But yeah, I just kind of dove into it because it was so exciting and interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's true for a lot of us that are doing kind of coaching and consulting and that sort of thing, is that it's really, at least for me, exciting to see other people grow with things, and just really for having those light bulb moments, aha moments, that we can, it's very similar to in therapy, but particularly with our coaching and that sort of thing. And I know one of the things that's a big thing for you, Jane, as it is for me, is just helping people with their mindset around it all. You want to say more about that?
Yeah. And actually, well, I was going to say before I say more about that, but actually this is so in line with that. You and I have known each other a long time now. And I think you and I have both had to work through our own mindset stuff as we've moved, grown in this field, in this fairly new profession of coaching, right? But what's cool is that I can reflect back to you. I've seen you grow in confidence in this space, and I think you've probably seen the same from me.
Right.
And it's cool to be able to know people for a long time who can say, oh yeah, you're showing up. You really, you're in your zone. You're in your zone of genius, and it's really cool to see that happening. So, yeah. I'm really excited about that for you.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Excited for me.
To say that. Yeah, the same. Yeah.
But mindset wise, I mean, I think the most basic way to think about it is that it's not just doing the strategies and the tasks and the recipes. It's thinking about who you want to be as you're doing that, but who do you want to be on the other side of that intention, right? Who are you becoming in the process? And again, all of your stuff, there's no hiding from it when you're running a business. I mean, your fear is going to come up. That's okay. That's normal. Your perfectionism, your tendency to either hide or to like blow through things as fast as possible with as much boldness as possible without stopping to listen and learn, right? Like your business is always, your life is always showing you where you're out of balance, and your business is always showing you where you're out of balance. Only it'll just show up in a real businessy way.
Yeah. All right.
So once you know where you're out of balance, and for a lot of people, what they realize is, man, I beat the crap out of myself all the time. I really don't like myself. And that'll show up in your business. And so a lot of what I'm doing as a coach is helping people be kinder to themselves and learn how to really like themselves so that they can show up in a bolder way in their business.
Right.
And,
Right.
make money and have more time and all the fun stuff, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think, yeah, in my own experience, one of the things that I would tend to beat myself up over is, I have a lot of knowledge about how to do the business stuff.
Right.
And then, true confession here, I don't always do that myself. And
Oh, I'm so
yeah,
shocked.
yeah, yeah. So
Please note the
yeah,
sarcasm in my voice. Yeah.
right, right,
Yes, we
yeah.
all,
So
yeah. I can
yeah,
relate to that completely, Gordon.
right, right. And so and an example of that is here lately. I mean, I'll share this. One of the things that in my own story, and James familiar with my story, and people that have been listening to the podcast, going through my wife's terminal illness this past year, and then her death, and that sort of thing. I put a lot of stuff to the side, which I needed to,
Of course.
and being able to give myself a little bit of grace around that, or a lot of grace around that. But I had let some of my systems and processes just really get sloppy and fall to
Mhm.
the wayside. And then I go start when I'm getting back into, as I call it, the new normal. I start
Mhm.
looking at things like, people always hear from me, look at your numbers, know your numbers. That's a theme with all of us that do consulting. You got to pull back the veil and,
Yeah.
pay attention to those things and not be afraid of it. And so I did that, and I'm thinking, holy crap, what has happened here with my practice?
Yeah.
I've got all these money leaks that I was
Mhm.
aware of. And so, yeah. And so it's, yeah, you want to say some things about that, about take the courage it takes to really kind of look at the stuff that we're not necessarily proud of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're really summing it up. It takes, first of all, it does take a lot of courage, and self-compassion is essential. It's
Mm-hmm.
essential. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't just say that because I'm this really nice, touchy-feely person. If we're not going to be self-compassionate, then we're just going to keep avoiding it more. And
Mm-hmm.
it just becomes a shame spiral, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I talk about self-compassion and fun, I'm like, no, no, no. Like these are essential elements so that we can look at
Mm-hmm.
our numbers that maybe we've neglected, or, whatever the thing is that you might be putting off or feeling like you should be doing, and be able to look at it with more curiosity than judgment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I would guess, Gordon, if you really look at that with curiosity and non-judgment, where you would probably go, and where you probably have gone, I hope, is, oh, well, I was going through this incredible life transition. I was doing
Mm-hmm.
the sacred work of transitioning someone out of this life who I've loved for so
Mm-hmm.
long.
Yeah.
And that deserves your focus, and that deserves your A+ effort. And when we're doing something that we want to do, be A+ at this, it's okay
Mm-hmm.
that there are going to be times we're going to do B- or C- work on those other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you hadn't brought your full self to that transition, into even into your grief process, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't be like, but I'm so excited that all my numbers are in pristine order.
Yeah.
Yay, right? I mean, I think the big lesson is we can't do it all perfectly. You
Mm-hmm.
choose what you're going to be A+ at any different moment, and what you're going to be C- at. I may
Right.
get all my ducks in a row and be getting my emails out regularly and have the best mastermind launch ever, but I'm going to be eating hot dogs during launch
Mm-hmm.
week, and pizza,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
my house is going to be a mess, and so
Yeah.
yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we do a lot of kind of going back to what you said earlier, do a lot of self-shaming about things that maybe we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves about.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And therapists especially, we love to be hard on ourselves, and we love
Hmm.
to suffer. So
Yeah.
that's a little, I mean, I know I'm being glib, but so many of us, that was our role in the family, was to sort of be the sponge of all the emotion and all of the chaos, and to be the steady one. And so often there isn't a lot of room for being super playful and experimental and take risks and be messy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So again, your business will kind of require that of you.
Right.
Otherwise, you're
Right.
going to, as as we become therapists and we monetize our pain,
Yeah. Right.
right? Like we're really
Yeah.
good at being there for people, right? And just and
Uh,
being able to hold space for for them and for their pain and for their growth and their struggle, which is such a gift. It's so great to be able to give that, right?
you're right.
But we've got to learn how to do the self-compassion side, the playful experimental mind side, and the self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And like
Mm-hmm.
I'll with the self-compassion thing, because another thing I've learned is there will be problems. I guarantee you will ugly cry in business for yourself. You will have
Mm-hmm.
moments where you're just like, forget it. I'm going to go, work at Chipotle. I don't care. I'm done. And I'll have, like with clients, I'll have a process. Like we need a process for when you're in the pit, and how do you kind of come back into yourself? And then how do you come back into your business and deal with those problems that are going to
Mm-hmm.
come? Because as someone once said, like the quote, maybe it was Seth Godin, he said, business is problems. It's just problems,
Mm-hmm.
problems, problems, and learning to work through them. But it's
Right.
still fun and rewarding. So yeah.
Yeah,
And you get
it is. And I think being able to accept just the flux of change, or just things that are always things are already, I guess that's the correct word. Things
yeah,
are always in flux. I mean, there's just a
always.
constant change, and being able to just accept that. And I interviewed a person in previous episode. Her name was Amy Dover. I think that's got. She's one of our mutual friend Whitney
Oh
Owens's
yeah.
a consultant with she's another consultant with
Yeah.
Wise
Yeah.
Practice. But I remember we were talking about life balance, and she
Hmm.
says that's really, really not a good way to think about it. She says it's she put it in terms of life rhythms. And I
Mm,
like that. I like that
great.
that that way of
Yeah,
putting things. Yeah.
that's great. It's more of a
Yeah.
dance.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because because balance implies that it's going to be like
Yeah.
your checkbook balances, kind of
Right,
thing, or
right,
whatever. Yeah.
right,
But
right. That it's possible to always have it balanced. I love that. I think, if we were going to get into the myths, one is, there's no such thing as complete life balance.
mhm.
It's always a dance, right? There's no such thing as passive income. I'm sorry, there's no such thing.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And many people have learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because again, once you know that, you can know, okay, well, so maybe I can learn, whether that's through coaching or doing my own research, I can learn how to just be more strategic, have it a
Hmm.
little, more passive, less of a slog,
Yeah.
but yeah, there are a lot of business myths out there.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some other things that you've had on your mind, just things that you've kind of learned, or
yeah,
that sort of thing?
I mean, I wish I had all the time in the world to list. I've had so much fun learning all kinds of different skills, right? I've loved learning to write better emails and yeah, help people design strategies for their practice and go through those money conversations with their clients and all of that. There are all these specifics that if we had more time, I'd get into. But if we're really, again, looking at the bigger picture, let's see, I'm gonna look at my notes because I jotted. Okay, this is in line with be unapologetically you, but really own your awesome. Like, don't be afraid to be a leader, a guide, a superstar, a wizard, like to have a bit of a sheen of, wow, this person really knows their stuff. I mean, also have the skills to back it up. What
Sure.
I mean, what I'm getting at, the this is going to sound negative, but what I've learned being in the space, in the coaching space, in the online world, that kind of thing, there are a lot of kind of superstars, people that were like, man, they're killing it. That's amazing. And I'm friends with a lot of them and I know a lot of them personally. Like I've seen their businesses grow and it's been really exciting. And they are human beings. They are normal human beings who struggle, who sometimes do get way out of balance and make big mistakes or have, big personal challenges because they've been working so hard on the business and vice versa. They are human beings. It's made me, it's funny. I feel less intimidated by like real, like celebrities, because I know all these business famous people and I'm like, oh, they're real. So if I meet Steve Martin, like he's a real person too.
Yeah.
Right. So the flip side of that coin is a lot of people, probably people who are listening, who think of themselves as, well, I'm just a therapist or, I'm just a normal person. I'm just me. I'm just no big deal. You are so much more awesome and so much more of a superstar than you may even realize.
Right.
And I'm really, especially with helpers and therapist types, I'm really not worried about them becoming conceited, narcissistic people by just admitting, wow, I'm really damn good at this. Like, wow, I do great work. I'm kind of a badass. What I'm doing is really incredible and I should talk about it more and let more people, I'm going to shine my light more.
Right.
At the risk of doing that, look at me thing. I'm going to shine my light more so that more people can find me and get the help they need. Right. I get so frustrated when I see people underestimate themselves because they don't want to be that conceited person. I'm like, no, but you're not going to become that person. But you do need to shine your light and just know how awesome you are.
Right. And that's a whole, that whole topic of imposter syndrome. I think a lot of times some sort of message that we get probably from parents and graduate school and everywhere else is we get that message of, oh no, you can't do that kind of thing. But truth of the matter is we can.
You are, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Of really wanting people keeping ourselves in the boxes that other people create for us. I think is, yeah.
And I had someone speak into my mastermind and she was talking about, what did she call it? It was like just being beige, because again, trying to make sure everyone's okay, right? Like if I'm too bright or if I've got stripes and polka dots, I'm gonna, it's going to offend someone. It's like, you know what? Go ahead and offend some people. It's okay. Now, having said that, if anyone is on social media, they've probably seen the flip side of that, which is the, just every other word's the F-bomb, which like, look at me, I'm so different. I'm so controversial. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be sincere. If you're, even as I'm like, hey, don't be beige. I'm like, but you know what? If beige is your favorite color, like be beige. Like, it doesn't have to be, it's leaning into being you and really seeing the value in that and knowing that the more you are, both in your personality, in how you talk, in the specific people you love to serve and being really clear about that is going to be like a dog whistle. It's like a signal, a radar that goes out where the people who are going to connect with you are going to go, I hear you. And they're going to be attracted to you. And it becomes a lot more easeful, right? It's not, how do I grab those clients and get them? It's more like, no, I'm leaning into being me. I'm forming more relationships. I'm being vocal about who I am, and it's really attracting naturally.
Right. One thing that occurs to me as you're saying all this, Jane, and this kind of piggybacks on a conversation I just had at lunch today with a friend of mine who's folks that know me know that I'm involved with church stuff and that sort of thing. And I was talking with the church that I'm going to be reassigned to here in Kingsport, and the rector there and I, the rector, the pastor, the priest, for make people have that rest. We were talking about my new role in going in that place, and one of the things that to understand is, yes, understand your greatness, understand your gifts, understand what you're good at, but also pay attention to the stuff that you're not so good at and allow others to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
Really
it's just
being
kind of
humble about
just being able to say, okay, this is not because I think sometimes in business and in our practices, even, we try to be everything for everybody, and that will just absolutely wear you out, and you will not do as good a job. And that just ties into the whole thing that people hear repeatedly, for those of us that have been around, but for those that maybe haven't been around, the importance of creating a niche for yourself. Or a niche, however you want to say that.
I like to joke, there's the saying, the riches are in the niches. And I'm like, the riches are in the niches. Did I say niche?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you can learn new things. Certainly, we've all learned new skills. When you go into private practice, you're wearing all the hats at first, right? And then you start to go, oh, okay, I can start to invest in other people to wear certain hats that I'm not good at, or that I just don't like. Like, it doesn't, if you're like I mean, we all have to write our session notes. There's no getting around it. But other than that, most unpleasant things can be outsourced or automated, or, we can get help with that. But yeah, like, really knowing your strengths is really, it's important. And again, it makes it fun. And if you're having fun, that's a good sign. It doesn't mean that you're neglecting others. And that, the other thing too, I think, kind of back to what you're saying, the flip side is that avoiding shame. If there are things that you're just not great at in your practice, that's okay. I'm terrible at numbers. One of the best decisions I ever made was to hire a bookkeeper / accountant to do all of that for me. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, like, I hired someone just for a one-time coaching session who was like, have you looked at your numbers? And I was like, it's been a few years. So so you can get through doing a lot of things imperfectly, and you can do fine.
But
just like, know your strengths. And again, I'm going to take the thing further of, like, know your strengths and amplify your strengths. It does also come down to, continue to work on being good at what you do. There's so much work around how to market, how to do money, all of these things that I love to teach. And, I've had acquaintances. I was at a networking thing with other therapists last night, and, there were some people I'd known for a while. This sounds so negative, but they were like, I've done all the things. I joined this coaching program, and I took this course, and I made all these slick materials, and and I can't seem to hang on to a client. And I'm like, that's because you're not. I'm thinking they haven't improved their therapy skills in a long time, and they're
right.
Like, work on your skills. Stay fresh with that. Being a really good therapist is a great way to get referrals.
Yeah. And do your own work. If you're a therapist, just get yourself in therapy. I mean, it's just, that's to me, that's a no-brainer. And a lot of times we neglect that, I think, as therapists. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's essential. It's essential.
Yeah.
Now, having said this, so you said, like, hey, just be a good therapist and you'll get clients. I do believe another big lesson of all of these, this decade of private practice, the 20 years of being a therapist, 23 years, is that getting help works, right? Whether, like, getting therapy has made me a better therapist and a better coach. learning, delving into continually learning about topics that come up in therapy, which I love that we get to learn in this profession. I get
All right.
learn
Yeah.
for fun, but it's part of work that's going to make me a better therapist. That makes me a better therapist. And as a business coach, I still invest in coaching for myself. Business coaching works. If it's a good fit, if it's good coaching, having colleagues, having coaching friends that are in my brain trust and I can bounce things off of, but also investing in coaching. Like coaching can really help because as we see in our therapy clients, when you're so close to it, it's just hard to see it.
Right.
We probably all had the experience of counseling counseling 3 clients in a row on the thing that we're dealing with in our lives. And we're great at giving them helping them through it. And when it comes to us, it's like, I don't know, what do I do?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So same thing with
that's been a whole theme for me.
Oh
yeah.
I sometimes think God is trying to tell me something because I truly, like, I remember once I had someone I was avoiding having the hard conversation with. I had 3 clients in a row who were like, I know I need to have the hard conversation. I just don't know how. I was like, okay, God is just like putting them in front of me, message through. But yeah, I mean, so same thing with business coaching. I know that I don't know what I don't know. And when I'm working with people, a lot of them, they don't know what they don't know. And so, and if they're not working with me sometimes, I want to like shake them and be like, oh, you're missing the point. You're missing it. Like you just have this 1 or 2 things you need to do differently. And if they are working with me, I get to tell them it's so fun. I get to work with them long term over that. But, we all need outside help and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah. And I think every time, and I would, ditto to everything you've said there, and that every time I've been involved in getting coaching or been part of a mastermind group or any of that sort of thing, I have seen exponential growth with the things that I'm doing. And you're right. It's being able to see things from a different perspective, see things that we might get blinded to in our own businesses. And two, I think just having a community helps facilitate courage because that you've got other people that are going through either something similar or they've been there before, that sort of thing, and they can support you through it all.
You find out that you're not alone for one thing, right? But then you do get courage. There was a study, I don't know, a few years ago where they studied the brains of mountain climbers, and they showed that people about to climb a mountain alone, like mountaineers about to, hike up the mountain alone, perceived the mountain to be 10 to 20% steeper than people who were standing with a friend who was going to do the mountaineering with them.
Wow.
Yeah. Like the challenge itself is so much steeper when you're alone.
Yeah. Right.
We're just so wired for relationship.
Yeah.
And other people do give us courage.
Yeah.
And I know who is on my speed dial / my Voxer app when I need a little courage.
Right. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Well, Jay, that brings us full circle to what we started talking about at the very beginning, and that's the importance of relationships. Yeah. And I know we've got to be mindful of our time. I know you and I are going to plan to spend at least a full day or not more. Yeah. We're gonna climb that mountain. Yeah, we are. We've already talked about that. But tell folks how they can get in touch with you. And I'll say this: if you haven't done it already, take the time to sign up for Jane's emails list, because she's got the most wonderful emails of anybody I know. And I look forward to them every week.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. I love to tell stories in my emails. And that's been that was the thing I was trying to learn, to write better emails. And I love those emails. I love writing them, and I love that people love them. So if people want to sign up for my emails, they can go to my website, janecartercoaching.com. And, there's a little sign up area for the email list. I also have a whole page of free resources, freebies, free resources. We're coming up on, I'm not sure when this will be released, but we're halfway through the year almost. I have an annual Soulful Solopreneur reflection workbook that I sent out in January, but midway through the year is a great time to download that. I'm actually going to be offering a free workshop to go through that as we enter the second half of the year. But I have several other freebies, and I would love to meet people and hear about their businesses. This is so fun for me. So
Yeah. And the URL is janecartercoaching.com, correct?
Yeah, that's the URL.
Okay.
And I'm on Instagram at Jane Carter Coaching. I'm trying to be more consistent about really going straight to my email list is the best way to be in touch. So
Right. And we'll have links in the show notes and show summary. Well, Jane, we'll be talking again here soon.
I really appreciate you having me.
It's my pleasure. Well, I'm so glad to have had this conversation with Jane as always. And Jane and I try to connect pretty often. She's not too far from me down in Asheville, North Carolina. But Jane is such a wonderful person. And as you heard in the interview, she's just so easy to talk to and just so pleasant to be with. And I just count myself very lucky and fortunate to have her as a good friend. So be sure and check her out at janecartercoaching.com. Again, that's janecartercoaching.com. And she's got some great resources there. And you can also connect with her on Instagram. She does some great posts there. So be sure and check her out. And also, before we go, be sure and check out the free PDF that you can get from the Sightcraft Network, just around how to start a podcast and maybe things you could consider in starting a podcast. So you can get to that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/sightcraftpdf. And again, there'll be links here in the show notes and the show summary for that. And also, big thanks to our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. And as you've heard me say many times before, they're who I use in my practice and just couldn't operate without them. So be sure and check them out, and be sure and use the promo code just Gordon, Gordon, and you can get to them by going to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. And they're constantly improving their products. So it's a good time to get in. Well, look forward to being with you again next week. And thanks again for being part of me with this journey with the Practice of Therapy podcast. It's hard to believe I've been doing this since 2017, and I just love doing this. And that's why I keep doing it. So take time to follow us or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. And we'll be talking with you again next week. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the Sightcraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting sightcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.